We're talking about the world's deadliest addiction and how to overcome it.
Inflicting pain on the person who wrongs us is extremely pleasurable, addictively sometimes pleasurable. The bottom line is that our brain on revenge looks like our brain on drugs.
Welcome back to the Dr. Phil podcast. Click to follow and subscribe to get this daily on all your podcast players and on YouTube. So please do that so you don't miss anything, because you never know what I got coming next. Today, I'm going to enjoy, and I think you are as well, and you're going to learn something that you don't know. I promise. This is a day where I can kind of turn my brain off, because I'm talking to a good, trusted friend and colleague that really knows what he's doing. The world often misunderstands revenge. Now stop and think about revenge in your life. Now and don't tell me you're not a revenge person. Everybody feels that pull sometime. And sometimes we dismiss it as merely just an emotional reaction or a personal flaw. But today, Dr. James Kimmel Jr. reveals revenge runs much deeper. And James is not just an accomplished author. He is a pioneering legal scholar, and he is also an expert in human behavior who has devoted his career to understanding really the dark corners of our minds. And this cuts across society. I'm not trying to get you to feel bad about yourself in saying this. It's part of human nature. His latest groundbreaking book, The Science of Revenge, which you're looking at on screen right now, Understanding the World's Deadliest Addiction and How to Overcome It. Now, that may seem like a bold statement, but let me say it again. We're talking about the world's deadliest addiction and how to overcome it. And it unveils the unseen neurobiological forces behind our compulsive desires for retribution. Now, this is an addiction that silently fuels violence and aggression in all its forms. Now, listen, he is a riveting storyteller and takes an interdisciplinary approach combining neuroscience, psychology, sociology, law, and history. And James challenges us to rethink everything we know about justice, forgiveness, and humanity's age-old obsession with revenge. From historical accounts to modern-day conflicts, he's going to really bring to light the underlying mechanisms of retaliation and how we can address this innate yet dangerous impulse. And it is dangerous. So, welcome back, James.
Well, thank you, Dr. Phil, for that outstanding introduction. I want the audience, of course, to know that you have been an early and incredibly strong supporter of this work and the importance of it for American society and world society and humanity itself. And your role in it cannot be underestimated. It's been significant in being able to advance this information to a broader audience so that everyone can benefit from new neuroscience research that's telling us what's going on inside your brain when you have a grievance and you start to feel that urge to retaliate, and further neuroscience evidence that can tell us how to shut that down before you hurt yourself or someone else.
Thank you for saying that. Let's talk about what that means, because these feelings of revenge, getting even, retribution, generally would categorize that as emotional, psychological, and behavioral, because it's a feeling, and it's a feeling that we often act on, or certainly want to act on. It's an impulse, it's strong, and it is timeless. I mean, this is historical. I mean, think of all the old sayings. If you're out for revenge, go to dig a grave, dig two. People think of it as psychological, as emotions. But what you're talking about, and you have rock solid evidence, and I'm so happy to talk about this. People need to understand this involves the brain just as powerfully as if they're addicted to drugs. This is if they're addicted to heroin, correct?
That is correct. Brain scans now show and have revealed over the last 10 years and maybe a little longer that when you have a grievance, that is to say, a perception, when you feel that you've been wronged, you've been mistreated, you've been insulted, shamed, humiliated, any of those feelings that arise in anger, and those could be political grievances, grievances with your significant other in your life, with your family, with your kids, with your boss at work, with your neighbors, all of these things all funnel into one set of neurocircuitry. And what occurs is this a grievance that I've just described, that's painful for you, and that activates the pain network inside your brain, and that area is called the anterior insula. So there's real pain involved. Psychological pain is as significant and potentially more than physical pains that you might feel. The brain doesn't want this pain. It wants the pain to stop. It wants pleasure to cover it up. And so what we end up with is that once the brain registers this pain, it activates the neural addiction and reward circuitry, the pleasure circuitry of the brain, just the same way that for somebody, a substance user, who sees a place where they've been taking substances or feels stress and that craving comes on to use alcohol or drugs, for somebody who has a grievance, this activates, but the craving that we get is not for alcohol or drugs, it is for revenge. That is to say, punishing the person who caused us pain or their proxies. It doesn't have to be the exact person that wronged you. You may seek revenge, and lots of people do, and we see it in society all the time, against those who are a proxy for the person who actually caused our pain. But we found in neuroscience that that pursuit of inflicting pain on the person who wrongs us is extremely pleasurable, addictively sometimes pleasurable, just the way a drug is. And so if you are a person, or if you're living with or friends with a person who's always retaliating or feeling the need to retaliate and, get an eye for an eye at every turn, you might be yourself, or you might be dealing with somebody who is struggling with revenge addiction. The bottom line is that our brain on revenge looks like our brain on drugs.
Yes, because it taps into the same center. So and I'm not trying to make excuses for people that feel this way, but I do want them to understand that there is a neurological component to this, the same as if they were going into withdrawal from drugs. If they're wanting to do this, it's a powerful pull, and this can affect childhood bullies, abusive partners, aggrieved employees. It can be politicians that are arguing, street gang members, violent extremists, mass killers, dictators like Hitler, Mussolini, people like this. And this is a big point you have made so well in saying that it doesn't have to be an aggrieved person. It's that they perceive themselves to be aggrieved. And you gave a great example of it. We were talking about this once before. And Dr. Kimmel and I have really done a deep dive on this, and he's taught me a lot about this. Let's say somebody gets caught robbing a house, and so they get arrested. They can distort this in their mind to the point that they become the victim and feel aggrieved by the cop that arrested them or the homeowner that pressed charges against them. They're the perpetrator. They broke into the house. They robbed the house, but they distort this in their mind to where they're the victim of the cop that did the arresting or the homeowner that pressed the charges, when they're the one that was the first link in the chain, but yet they wind up perceiving themselves as the victim, correct? You've heard me talk about Jace Medical. If not, listen up because they're doing incredible work in medical preparedness. And today, I've got two major updates to share. First up, the ivermectin use case. You've probably seen the headlines calling it a wonder drug. The scientist who discovered it even won a Nobel Prize, and now Jace is offering a 30-day supply at the best price you'll find anywhere. Next, the upgraded Jace case, an emergency supply of antibiotics delivered to your door. They've doubled the number of medications to 10 at just $20 more. And now, the most comprehensive and affordable kit available. Get it before you need it. Don't wait, order today. Visit jace.com and use code PHIL at checkout for a special discount. That's JASE.com, code PHIL. When your credit isn't perfect, it can really feel like the system is stacked against you. Kickoff gives you the tools to build credit fast. With affordable plans starting at $5 per month, no hidden fees, and zero interest, Kickoff helps you score big when it comes to credit. Make payments on time and your credit can grow fast. Users with credit under 600 grew an average of 84 points in their first year. With over 1 million users, there's a reason why Kickoff is the #1 credit builder app. Start building credit with Kickoff today and get your first month for as little as $1. That's 80% off the normal price when you go to getkickoff.com/Phil today. That's Kickoff without the C. Get KIKOFF.com/Phil.
Must sign up via getkickoff.com/Phil to activate offer. Offer applies to new Kickoff customers first month only. Subject to approval. Offer subject to change. Average first year credit score impacted plus 84 points. Vantage score 3.0. Between January of 2023 and January of 2024. For Kickoff credit account users who started with a score below 600, who paid on time, and who had no delinquencies or collections added to their credit profile during the period. Late payments may negatively impact your credit score. Individual results may vary.
That's correct. And we could go one step back from that, Dr. Phil, and look at that person's life beforehand and their perception of having been wronged, which is driving them to commit a robbery in the first place. So they might have seen themselves, for instance, as having been denied certain material things that they wanted in their lives. Maybe they were mistreated by a parent for, their entire childhood, or other parts of society. But the perception, it doesn't matter whether it's real or imagined, that of having been mistreated or treated unjustly, and in other words, victimized, creates that victim mindset. And the victim mindset is a mindset of pain, real, genuine psychological pain. And the brain needs a way to manage that. And we've evolved roughly from the Ice Age, evolutionary scientists believe, forward to want to punish people who either victimize us or violate social norms of any kind. And the belief is that the leading theory is that to live in a society, people needed the ability, early human beings, to punish those who violate social norms. And we still need that today. And nothing that our neuroscience is showing today isn't that we don't need the ability to cause and teach people to comply with social norms and to not harm other people, or for all of us to practice self-defense for ourselves. None of that is at stake in this. But what this is talking about is the far more dangerous wrongs of the past, prior injustices and victimization that it might have happened minutes, months, or years ago, that we still ruminate on and that we continue to replay in our minds, which continues to activate this pain circuitry, and then triggers over and over again this desire to retaliate and punish the person who wronged us, despite the negative consequences of doing so. And that's the key factor, Dr. Phil, is your revenge seeking happening despite you knowing what the negative consequences, and there almost always are, will be? And are you able to control it? If you're not, that starts to look like an addiction. As a matter of fact, that's pretty much the standard definition of what an addiction is an inability to resist a desire to engage in a behavior or to take a substance. So what you're looking at then is wrongs of the past, not imminent threats of serious bodily harm, which should be triggering our fight or flight instinct always, that we're born with that. So, we're not letting go of those types of situations or the types of people who are threatening us in real time. But once it moves into the past, where only it can live inside of your memory, and only the pain of it can live inside your head, and only the desire for revenge can live inside your head, those types of grievances and revenge desires, those are the ones we're talking about, and they ruin lives. They create criminals who were otherwise normal people. And it's not about evil forces that have been, encircling the planet and get a hold of a certain type of person who's often we always think of as the other guy, who's, overrun by evil thoughts and feelings, and therefore we can kind of lock up a certain type of people. We're talking about any normal person can have and does have revenge desires for sure, and does have the responsibility to manage those revenge desires. But we don't do in our society a good job of teaching kids, starting at, look, revenge seeking studies show starts in the toddler years. If you take a toddler's ice cream cone and they want to slap or scream at you or try and, cause you some amount of pain in return for their pain, we've all experienced this. So toddlers all the way through seniors are engaged in this lifelong struggle of how to manage this desire to retaliate when we feel that we've been wronged.
Well, this has real ramifications, I think, for where we are in society right now. And I'm not talking about this from a political standpoint. Think about this, and I know you're saying that it applies to everybody, but I'm just talking about how much it's amplified and elevated in a society that we have right now where victimhood is a higher art form. So much of a segment of society that has taken victimhood as a self-defining property, as a way of defining themselves in this world, and it adorned it with entitlement. And really, if we look at these people who feel and have really glorified, glamorized, and I believe you teach people how to treat you, have been reinforced by society saying, oh, yeah, you're right, you're such victims, and so they become validated in that, then we've got a real angry society on our hands, certainly a portion of it that is amplified, I think, above society in general. That's why I think this is such critical work. Now, I don't know how we motivate those people to want to rid themselves of this or manage this in themselves, but we've got a whole portion of society that has taken this to a higher art form.
Well, and that brings, you're dead right on it, and that brings us to the point of needing to use this amazing set of breakthroughs in neuroscience for our benefit. So we can start to see grievance-triggered revenge cravings as addictive. And when we start to look at it in that way, we have already built an enormous public health system for dealing with other forms of addiction. And so we can use those other forms of addiction treatment and prevention strategies to help people get over these revenge cravings, which have long been thought of as, oh, they're evil thoughts, we can't do anything about them, or this is just an angry person, that's just the way they were born. It doesn't have to be that way. And the medical profession and the mental health profession don't have to stay on the sidelines and accept that kind of description when the neuroscience evidence and human history are very clear that this really is an addiction-driven type of behavior and addiction-driven approaches from the mental health and self-help fields can all have an amazingly powerful impact in reducing this. And that begins just the way it began with alcoholism and drug use, 60, 80, 100 years ago, when finally those types of behaviors were brought out of the shadows. And people used to think that was an evil type of, it was a force that took over some types of people and not others. And addicts, people who had substance use disorders and alcohol disorders or even gambling disorders, were just routinely jailed. I mean, that was the solution. We got to take them off the streets. We got to put them behind bars. That was attempted for decades. It destroyed many, many people, and it didn't fix anyone. But moving it to a public health approach has saved lives, many, many thousands, potentially millions over the more recent decades. And we can start to use those same types of helpful approaches, reducing the stigma and helping bring to light what's actually happening with these folks, and hooking them up with public health resources that can actually change the dynamic. But we have, with revenge addiction and revenge seeking, there's an additional tool that hasn't been available for other forms of addiction that is extraordinarily effective on the mind in terms of breaking that addiction and stopping that behavior. And that tool is stunningly, and this is very recent neuroscience evidence, it's stunningly forgiveness. And maybe we can talk a little bit about what happens inside your brain when you forgive, now that we've talked about what happens inside your brain when you feel wronged or victimized.
Your body is a system, and when it's running right, you feel focused, energized, in flow, but sometimes we struggle to find that flow state. Why? Because there's too much static in our system, brain fog, fatigue, and inflammation. The Echo Flask clears the static by infusing your water with molecular hydrogen, a natural science-backed gas that helps your body think sharper, recover faster, and run smoother. This is more than hydration. It's better focus, more energy, faster recovery, less internal stress, and longer-term benefits that keep you sharp. When your water works harder, your whole system does too. Find your flow state with the Echo Flask hydrogen water bottle and get an unlimited supply of hydrogen water at home and on the go. Visit echowater.com/Phil and use code Phil for 10% off. That's echowater.com/Phil. Enter code Phil to save 10%. This episode is brought to you by Masa Chips. For decades, chips were fried in tallow until big corporations switched to cheap seed oils. Now, seed oils make up 20% of the average American's daily calories, linked to inflammation and metabolic issues. Masa is bringing back the good stuff with 3 simple ingredients: organic nixtamalized corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. No seed oils, no junk, just a crunchy, sturdy chip that won't break in your guac. Masa Chips is beloved by tens of thousands of customers and has been endorsed by industry-leading health and nutrition experts like Ben Greenfield and Gary Brecka. Ready to give Masa a try? Go to masachips.com/merit and use code MERIT for 25% off your first order. That's masachips.com/merit and code MERIT for 25% off your first order. Well, I think the first thing people need to understand is that forgiveness is a choice. It's not a feeling. I think sometimes people sit back passively and wait for this feeling of forgiveness to wash over them. Like I'm waiting for this spiritual happening of forgiveness to wash over me like a warm wave of water on the beach. That's not the case. Forgiveness is a choice, and it is a choice that people can make. They don't just make it once. They have to work to achieve the ability to forgive, and it too has huge rewards. in terms of the feelings that people get, the escape from pain, the escape from the pressure cooker. And there's a great payoff for those that work to achieve and actually get to the point of feeling reward. And there's a neuroscience that goes with that as well, correct?
That is correct. And so let me tell you what we found. It happens inside the brain when you forgive. And we do need to start, as you said, with the idea that there are kind of a lot of misunderstandings about forgiveness that stop people from even considering it, and has created, certainly in America, a culture in which kind of forgiveness is thought of as a weak response. It's weakness, and it opens up the door to further attack, and you'll actually be worse off if you forgive. And that's not the case at all. And part of that begins with the idea that forgiveness is somehow a gift that you give to the person who wronged you. And that is not true at all. The neuroscience shows this. Once you have a grievance and a desire for revenge, if you think about forgiveness, and I mean just think about it, just imagining it in your own head without telling anyone, and certainly not telling the person who wronged you. But if you just imagine forgiveness for a moment, and if you're a listener or a viewer and you have a grievance, and as soon as I say it, you're going to know exactly which one it is, because we all have them. And once you get that grievance in your head and you think about it, now just take a minute, take a deep breath, and imagine forgiving that for just a second. You don't have to really forgive. Just imagine that's your decision. I'm just going to forgive that thing and I'm going to move on. Well, here's what happens inside your brain. First of all, you're going to start feeling a sensation of relief and satisfaction. Why? Because what forgiveness does that revenge doesn't is it actually shuts down that neural pain network. So that anterior insula that I mentioned before, that's activating for real and or imagined grievances, forgiveness shuts that down. It doesn't just cover it up with a dopamine release of revenge that's pleasurable for about 5 or 10 minutes and then leaves you worse off and feeling more pain and yet wanting more. What it does is it actually ends the pain of that victimization. That's number one. The second thing that it does is that it shuts down that annoying and constantly go reward circuitry of pleasure seeking that comes from revenge craving. So all of a sudden you'll feel those painful, intrusive revenge cravings shutting down, because forgiveness shuts that part of the brain down too. And then the third thing that it does is it activates your prefrontal cortex, which is your self-control and executive function circuitry. And over there, it's turning on the good decision-making and saying, hey, let's just control that revenge urge for a minute, and let's just enjoy what it feels like to actually have this grievance obliterated from our minds, because that's how forgiveness works. It actually takes it out of your head, and it's long lasting. Unlike revenge, which gives you that short-term dopamine hit, forgiveness is long lasting and gives you this much longer resolution of the grievance, potentially for your entire life. But as you said, Dr. Phil, and you're absolutely correct, that's a decision that you make repeatedly until you've defeated the pain of that grievance. So each time it reappears, and it will, if you've imagined your grievance and imagined forgiving, you'll feel better, but it might only last for a minute. And then you might feel that grievance come back. And then you can forgive it again. And when you forgive it several times, or as Jesus taught us, right, 70 times 7 times is how many times you ought to forgive. I think he was talking about a neuroscience that he wasn't even aware of, which says is that you forgive and you're destroying that memory, or the pain at least of that memory of your victimization. And that is what actually sets you free. So we've got this powerful self-help tool that can solve our grievances, or we've got this revenge-seeking tool, which is going to take us down the wrong path and create a revenge cycle in which we're constantly harming other people and getting harmed ourselves. And then we have the addiction prevention and treatment strategies like therapy, counseling, motivational interviewing, CBT, 12-step programs and everything else that's part of addiction, that can also work. But forgiveness has this kind of really amazing, free, easy, miraculous power to set ourselves free from the wrongs of the past.
From a psychological standpoint, we're never weaker than when we're angry. We're never more of a victim than when we're angry. We've given our power away. We think that's when we're the most powerful because we're all pumped up and we're angry, but that's when we're actually the weakest. And what you're saying by pursuing forgiveness is we're taking our power back. And I think about holding a grudge and being locked in this revenge loop. It's like, I think about whoever it is that you feel aggrieved by. It's like you're locking hands with them and you're locked in forever and they're right in your face. And when you forgive that person, it's like you let go and you've pulled away from them. They're not controlling you anymore. You're free and you can let go of them. And I can tell you, forgiveness in my life, I've forgiven people that never knew they transgressed against me. It's not about them. It's about me. They didn't need to know. They never knew they transgressed against me. They didn't need to know. It wasn't about them. It's like I've accepted apologies that were never given. It's like I've just decided it's okay. They don't need to know. And I think if we can get people to understand this is about me letting myself, that prison you get in when you're in that revenge loop, that door locks from the inside. You don't have to wait for them to let you out. You can let yourself out, and the key is forgiveness. That's what we can control. And that's what I want people to hear from what you're saying. They don't have to wait for somebody else. This is all up to them. After decades of treasured experiences and cherished moments, living your best life matters more than ever. Whether it's cheering on your grandchildren at their baseball games, planting new flowers in your yard, or simply spending quality time with loved ones, take Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies supplements along with you. Made from ingredients of 31 whole fruits and vegetables, they are free from added fillers or binders. Embrace life's adventures with confidence, knowing you're getting a wide and colorful variety of ingredients made from whole fruits and vegetables every step of the way. Start your journey with Balance of Nature. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com to get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first preferred set as a new preferred customer with free shipping and our money-back guarantee. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code Dr. Phil. That's DRPHIL. Hey, Dr. Phil here. Your savings are at risk. With the economy on shaky ground, the dollar losing value, and a $2 trillion deficit, things could spiral. Don't wait for the worst. Take control of your financial future now. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. What are you going to do to protect what's yours? Claim your special offer and learn how to reinforce your financial future. Visit drphilgold.com to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Visit drphilgold.com today.
Boy, every one of those metaphors, I wish I'd had this conversation while I was writing my book, because you've really put your hand on it. And I want to use locking hands with the person who wronged you and finally deciding to just let go. That's such a powerful metaphor for what's occurring. And it's also important to really focus on that choice, and that the forgiveness that you're doing never, ever needs to be communicated to the person who wronged you. It's completely internal to you. You can share it if you want. But let's just think for a second, why would you do that? You would probably say, I forgive you to somebody if you want to maintain the relationship that you have with them. You want to salvage it. Great. If that works in a certain situation, do it. But there will be other situations in which maybe the relationship either isn't important to you, isn't possible anymore, is irreparably broken. Maybe the other person is completely gone for your life, from your life. And in all of those instances, and I've used the strategies, the forgiveness strategies that I've developed with people whose, let's say, a serious act of violence, a murder occurred years ago, but the person who did the murdering is now dead. So you can't get revenge on them anyway, but you're still thinking about it and you're still wanting the revenge that you're never going to get. And finally, to decide, I'm just going to forgive that and move on is so freeing, because there is no other way to free yourself. You, as you said, Dr. Phil, you're unlocking the door from the inside and letting yourself out of the prison that your brain has constructed. And it's a real prison. And there's no doubt about it. The neuroscience shows that that is a real prison. But now it's showing that there is a way to unlock that door and get out and set ourselves free. And we can even do that, at a societal level. I think that societies themselves, as groups of people, go through cycles of revenge seeking and then forgiveness. And that we in America right now, we're in a pretty vengeful state. I think we're a revenge addicted nation in a lot of ways. And I think that in large part, that's been brought upon us, or at a minimum amplified, by social media platforms that have technology has just brought them into human experience very recently, and we weren't prepared for it. We're not prepared mentally at all for a system that can be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on a little phone that we hold in our hand, that's constantly breathing grievances into our face from other people, infecting us with their grievances, and then giving us the instantaneous opportunity to retaliate with a mean statement of our own desires to retaliate and what should be done to so-and-so and why, and infecting other people with those grievances, so that we end up with a million people, or millions of people, I should say, sharing the same grievance at the same time, and all at the same time engaged in planning and fantasizing how to get revenge. It's an exceptionally dangerous time that we live in. And you can see it all throughout your own social media. You can see it on television and every other media platform. And we need to start taking steps to control that, or it's going to control us. And we're all going to be, as a nation, inside a revenge-seeking prison, which would be very dangerous, and has happened throughout society in some of the most important nations of the world. And I write about those in my book.
The algorithm picks up on this on social media, and it starts feeding that algorithm, because you click more when you're upset, not when you're calm. And it starts connecting people together, so there gets to be a mob mentality. And I've always told people across time, I did it when I was in private practice, and I've done it since, that you never know how long the people in your life that you care about are going to be there, or how long you're going to be there. And I've always admonished people, don't let the sun set another day that you don't reach out and say and do to the people you love and care about the things you need to say and do. And I've never seen more desperate pain than someone that had serious grievances with a family member, a mother or father, for example, and that person died. And being rather experiential, I've taken sometimes those patients to the cemetery and symbolically had them say what they needed to say to that person, to their headstone, to the grave, and invariably would hear them say, "How dare you die on me, you no good rat bastard, before I had a chance to say what I needed to say. How dare you do this to me? And they felt so lost and so cheated and so upset, and how I wished I had your model, the non-justice system for setting yourself free. If we can jump to chapter 11 of your book and talk about the model, the role-playing model where the person plays every role. But can you describe to people this virtual trial process that you think is so important to go through? And I couldn't agree more and wish that you developed this many years ago, but talk us through this.
What we're looking at when we have a grievance, and I should probably start by saying I'm a lawyer by training. And what lawyers do, litigators do, is we go into courtrooms and we start the process of seeking legalized revenge, right? I mean, that's what a lawsuit is about, or a criminal prosecution is. We're going to try and hold somebody accountable for sure, but often there's a motivation that's deeper than that. It's natural. It's what we've been talking about. It's this gratifying, this craving for revenge, which is to say to punish the person who wronged you or wronged society if there was a crime against society. So humans for thousands of years have been living with this trial structure. And there's a reason, it turns out, for it, because the trial structure gives victims, victims of all forms of trauma, this critical opportunity to be heard in public so that they can share what happened to them. It gives you this incredible opportunity for the defendant to state their side of the case and maybe explain whatever their circumstances were for why they did it, should they choose to do so. You get a judge or a jury who's going to hold the defendant accountable or perhaps find them innocent. And then, more behind the scenes and behind the curtains, there's going to be a warden that's running the prison that's going to carry out a sentence that's handed down by that judge or the jury. But you rarely ever get a chance to see that or be part of that. So what I did with this research that has been, kind of coming together over the last 20 years is saw the insight that if the pain that we've been describing, Dr. Phil, is inside our heads, that's the memory of victimization and trauma. If that's in your head and you can't experience it with your senses, and if the memories that are causing you that pain are only inside your head, nobody else outside of you can experience what happened 20 years ago to you. They can't experience your memories of it now, nor, lastly, can they experience your cravings for revenge and desire to punish the person who wronged you, which are also only inside your heads. And so it occurred to me during my research, why don't we recreate the trial experience inside your head where everything is happening? Do we really need a courtroom that's built of stone and that has a real judge on a bench that's not you, and a bunch of lawyers who are not you, and a court stenographer and a jury who's not you, to do all of this work, when you could just have one person, the actual victim, have the opportunity to carry out that trial on their own inside their head, but play all the roles themselves. So they get to play the prosecutor and victim. They get to play, you the victim, you get to play the defendant for a moment and imagine what the defendant's going to say. You get to play the judge and the jury, not some other judge. You get to be the judge. You get to be the jury, and you get to be the warden carrying out the punishment. And then ultimately, we add one last step called the final judgment, in which you get to play the judge of your own life in deciding whether you wish to set yourself free. And it's all your decisions. The entire trial is under your control. It's a dramatic process. We've used it with victims of serious sexual abuse, as I said before, murder, just about any form of crime and any other form of victimization and trauma. And what we find is that it creates for people this amazing, long long and desperately needed opportunity to be heard and to hold somebody accountable. And to do that at the same time that by the end, not only they get the opportunity to decide guilt or innocence and punish and be part of that punishment by imagining what it looks like safely, taking away this craving for revenge in the real world that is so deadly and dangerous to their lives. And then in the last step, give them the opportunity to imagine what it would feel like, as I described, to forgive and set themselves free rather than continue seeking justice in the form of revenge. So that's the non-justice system that we've created. I've created an app version that's free for people called the Miracle Court app that anyone can access.
I think when people hear this, they think, well, so I'm just going to talk to myself about this. No, let me tell you. Let me give an example of how important I think this is at a couple of different levels. You can think about something in your mind, but until you role play this out in the different roles within this and force yourself to articulate those positions, to pass the judgment, to render the opinions, to do the things, until you force yourself to crystallize this and put it into complete sentences, you just kind of vaguely go through this. And I think one of the best examples is when you train children what to do if someone tries to snatch them at the park or whatever, and you tell them they need to fall to the ground and start yelling for help and kicking and screaming. The research is very clear. Unless they've practiced that, unless they've actually done it, the chance of them following through and doing it for the first time ever in their life when it really happens is practically zero. But if you've gone out in the yard with them and they've actually done it 10 or 12 times, the chance that they'll actually do it when it happens goes up exponentially because they're not going to freeze up. It's the first time they're going to do it. They've actually got a muscle memory and they go through this. And if you actually go through this Miracle Trial app and you're forced to actually make the argument in each of these positions where it's cognitive dissonance, it's you have to argue the other person's side, the other person's position, it takes down the resistance to those positions and it causes you to really open, I think it causes you to open up your mind so much, but more importantly, as importantly, your brain starts to have a different alignment neurotransmitter-wise. It changes your brain chemistry. This isn't just going through a silly game-playing exercise. I believe if we get to the point, and I don't know how far you've gone in this, but I would bet all I could gather that there are changes in brain chemistry when people go through this process.
Yeah, I think there are too, but that area of brain study needs to be done, right? That has not happened. And we very much would like to get to that level where we can watch what's happening inside somebody's brain when they go through this trial process. Because, what we do know, I can tell you from without the brain scans, I can tell you that the grievance expression, we've been able to measure that, and that shoots up. We're able to measure grievances, and just remembering and describing a grievance that you have, sends your desire for revenge soaring. I mean, it just absolutely goes bonkers. It goes to its maximum. And we've also been able to measure what happens at the end of the trials. And at the end of these trials, your revenge cravings are back almost to where they were at baseline, very low compared to when they're inflamed from having experienced or having related what happened to you. So I think that you're right. We have good outside of the brain evidence that there are changes, just as you've described, but we really need the brain scanning evidence to kind of put a finer point on it.
the important thing is people should look at this as you said it's not a weakness. This is an empowerment. This is people taking back their power, where right now, if they're in this revenge addiction, they've given their power away to the perceived perpetrator, to the aggrieved party. And there are so many children that grew up in abusive homes, or got into the hands of pedophiles, or worked for a toxic narcissist in the workplace, or were in a domestic violence situation or whatever, that are very real. They have been through trauma. These are very real things that they don't know where to go with these feelings. But seeking revenge for them won't heal the feelings. But getting these toxic feelings out, the one thing I wanted to say before that I've heard so many people misconstrue is when you forgive these feelings, that's not the same as saying what happened is okay, that I now accept this. That's not what we're saying here. That's not what forgiveness says. You're not saying, well, okay, that's okay now. I've by forgiving that, what you did is okay. You can forgive them and put them in prison for 40 years at the same time. You're not saying it's okay. You're just saying, I refuse to let it dominate my life from this point forward. I'll let God deal with judgment. I'm not going to be locked into this prison with you from now on. We're not asking them to say it's okay. We're just asking them to say, I'm not going to be held in prison with you anymore about it. I'm letting it go. Forgiving is not endorsing it or saying it's okay.
That's right. It's never condoning it. And I'm glad you made that powerful point. That's exactly correct. Just as we said, you don't need to tell the person who wronged you that you're forgiving. You don't need to in any way imagine that what they did wasn't wrong, or in any way to believe in yourself or to express to them that it was okay. It wasn't okay. Obviously, it wasn't okay. You're making this decision to say that pain that you inflicted on me in the past, that's not going to hurt me anymore. I'm done with it. I'm going to put an end to it now. That past is in the past, and I want it to live there. I don't want it to live and infect my present life or my future, which is what ends up happening to so many people. And they carry it forward. It harms them. They re-injure themselves each day that they remember the trauma. And then they're also caught up in the pain of these revenge cravings that are going to ruin their lives going forward as well. And we really do have some powerful tools now that can free people of these wrongs of the past. And that's one of them. And then, as I said, these addiction treatment strategies and prevention strategies that professionals can use with you are also available so that they can work on it from potentially both sides, right? The forgiveness side and the addiction control side, where they can work on helping you resist, overcome, and shut down harmful cravings that will hurt you and other people.
This is not letting them off, it's letting you off. And that's the point. We're not letting them off, we're letting you off. The book is The Science of Revenge, Understanding the World's Deadliest Addiction and How to Overcome It. And let me just tell you, Dr. Kimmel is not coming at you with some egg-headed theory here. You're looking at the cover of the book right now. He's not coming at you with some theory here, which you think, oh yeah, this is great theory if you're some academician or something. That is absolutely not the case. I've read it twice and then studied different parts of it. But like the table of contents, for example, the deadliest addiction, quest to find a killer. This is your brain on revenge. This is what revenge addicts want you to know. These are the screams of revenge addicts in pain. These are the deadliest revenge addicts in human history. Adolf Hitler was one of that's on that list. You'll read the others. This is America on revenge. This is humanity on revenge. This is your brain on forgiveness. This is how to kick the revenge habit. This is the non-justice system for setting yourself free. And in the conclusion, a revenge recovery story. Dr. Kimmel has a very powerful story of his own, which he shares. He even talks about how lawyering can be legal bullying. And this is all applied. This isn't some theory that's for academicians. This book is written for you and me and your children and everybody, because we're all subject to this. This is just human nature, right, Doctor?
That is correct. We are born with it, all of us. Revenge seeking is not an abnormal behavior. It is not a mental illness. It's not pathological in its own right. It becomes that way if you start to do it despite knowing of the negative consequences to you and other people. That's when it becomes dangerous. So the desire to retaliate, think about it, fantasize about it, that's natural. Going out, getting a gun and gunning down a bunch of people, that's pathological. It's pretty straightforward that way.
That's where we move something into the addiction category. Think about alcohol or drugs. If you do it and it is self-destructive, it's destroying your family, it's destroying your job, it's destroying your relationship with your children, it's destroying your life, but you continue to do it anyway. Now we know you're not controlling it, it's controlling you. That's when it's crossed over the line. That's what's happening with revenge in too many lives in our society and in this country. And I'm going to politic and push on this until it's part of the curriculum with kids. If you teach them this early, they can stop it early, and it needs to be part of the model that's used with health caregivers. It needs to be part of the curriculum in school, and we're going to keep beating a drum on this. I think Dr. Kimmel's going to think I'm a stalker because I'm pushing on this hard, and I just think it's really, really important. And I've endorsed the book, and I continue to think it's just very, very important work. So I'm going to continue to push on it, and so we're going to stay on top of this, right?
You bet. And, I'm honored to have your endorsement on this book. I mean, right there on the back cover, and to have your support, Dr. Phil, has been fantastic. You're a leading voice in this, and you're kind of perfectly positioned to be that voice because you're that perfect intersection between psychology and America. And that's what we need right now, is somebody who can translate this stuff directly into human lives. And you've just been such a great gift to America for being able to do that. So thanks for partnering with me on this.
Well, I'm proud to do it, and I look forward to our next chapter on this. Doctor, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Fantastic.